To set up your videos in Photoshop, you want to go ahead and create a new file. For your new file, you want to set custom dimensions. So you'll want to create a width of 16, a height of 9 inches, and keep the resolution at 300. You can do whatever background you like in Photoshop, but I'm going to go with the default black. So I'll set that black here and hit create. And there we go. We have a background file. Now I will bring in my folder with my videos, and I can simply drag them right into the Photoshop file. So there's one. After it's dragged in, I hit enter. And maybe I'll use 2 and 3. You'll notice here, this is the default palettes. There's a lot of things here that can be in our way. I'm going to go ahead and just drag up layers so they take up more space, because I really want to be able to see that clearly. You also are going to need a timeline. So I'm going to go to Window, which is where you go for palettes that are missing. If you can't find them, and click Timeline. And that appeared out of screen, but here's the timeline here, and I'll click Create Video Timeline. And now all our videos have their timelines set there. For the Premiere video, I did do a triptych. For this one, I think I will go with a diptych. So I'm just going to delete this layer entirely. This little symbol you can see on the layer here, where it's like a little piece of paper with a card in front of it, that means that this is a smart object. And that's a good thing. It means you can resize this video, and you can size it down and size it back up, and it won't lose any resolution. Because we're dealing with 2 videos, I'm going to select both layers. So I select one, then I hold Shift and select the next. I'm going to select the Move tool, and I'm going to turn off Auto Select and turn on Show Transform Controls. Now I can simply drag, and this will change size. Something I need to take a moment to specify is if you're using anything but the newest version of Photoshop, when you drag, the picture will change dimensions like this, which you don't really want. And by holding Shift, it will hold even dimensions like this. The weird thing is that with the newest version of Photoshop, the default is it's the opposite. So if you just drag it, the dimensions will stay stable. And if you hold Shift, the dimensions will be all funky. So you should just check which one works so you know what you're doing. So I'll size this to about here. And now I will just select one clip at a time, and I will place them. Now you can see these little guides that are popping up, these little purple lines. In the View menu here, there's this option for Snap. That will help us with laying out videos. As they get close to each other, you'll see they kind of snap into place. So those are lined up. I'll select both again by selecting both layers and move them up and down so they just snap right in the middle. So as you know, a rule of this assignment is that you're not supposed to move the camera. These video clips were taken in a little spring I found in the woods, and you can see with the clip on the left when I play it that the camera makes its way down into the water, and then it's still. So I don't want any of that stuff in the beginning from that clip. Just to make sure I'm selecting the right clip, I can select the timelines, and the layers will turn on correspondingly. So I have this point that I want to shorten to, so I'll take the little trim tool, it's the same as Premiere, click, and drag. And there we go. And now I can just drag this one back to the beginning of the timeline so they start together. Now as I go, I'm going to go almost to the end of the shorter clip. And now I'm going to drag them both to end at the same point. Why did I go almost to the end? In the case of these videos, they end either with me pulling the camera out of the water, which is kind of like a special issue, but a more common issue is that they end with me hitting the record button to stop the recording. In general, some cameras will delay for a second before they start recording, and some cameras record right away. That means that you record the pushing of the button, so you'll see the frame shake a little bit, and that usually happens at the end. So you should expect to trim a little bit off the end of any video. So there we go. We've got our basic setting here. Now, I used relatively low-res videos for this demo because an issue that Photoshop has is it won't give you great playback. That being said, Photoshop does have some other advantages that Premiere doesn't. Like you can use adjustment layers and masks and things that you might be more used to using in Photoshop. So right now I can see that my contrast looks a little higher on this image. So I'm just going to throw a adjustment layer on here. I can go to adjustment layers here, this tab here, and I'm going to pick a curve. I'll move this down so I can see the whole thing. And I'm going to go ahead and just boost the contrast a little, even make the picture a little darker too, just so they match each other a little better. This isn't a lesson in curves, but generally if your curve looks like an S, that will increase your contrast. And if it looks like a backwards S or a Z, that will decrease your contrast. Now this button here, the little square with the arrow pointing down next to it, that will link your adjustment so it only affects the layer below it. By default, this curve is the same length as the clip that it's above, and that's a good thing. If it's shorter, it means that the adjustment will stop after the timeline passes it. We don't want that. Now, you could use a short adjustment, short duration adjustment to correct a flicker or something in the camera, but that's pretty advanced. So we could just be done here and go straight into export. And I will show you the export settings, but then I'm going to show some more advanced layout things that are very easy to do in Photoshop. So here I go to export and I choose the option render video. And I'm going to choose H.264 as the format, not QuickTime, not DPX. And for document size, I'm going to go with HTV 1080p. Actually, I don't like that because it's saying it's going to be anamorphic. We don't need to know what that is. I'm just going to leave it at custom. I'm going to set that back to document, which is where it started. So you can disregard what I just did. And in custom, I will set it to 1080 on the short side and let this just go with its default. So after that's set, you go up here to render and name the video your own name and hit render, which I'm not going to do right now because I want to show something else we can do with the adjustments. So selecting each layer, using transform controls, we can set these vertically. Now I can hold the shift key while I'm rotating and then it'll kind of lock into obvious angles. And maybe I'll balance this at the bottom, grow it to the top. You can see here that working with vertical videos does allow you to fill up more of the screen real estate. It looks like I made the other one just a tiny bit shorter, so get that. So now I could put these right next to each other, for instance. I think that would look pretty interesting. I could also do something totally unconventional if it seemed relevant for my piece. And put these videos into a sort of structure. So here I'm going to watch the angle carefully. It's listed right there. I'm going to set it to Doesn't matter what I set it to as long as I keep track of that number. So it looks like this number 4796. So I'm going to just use Command C to copy that number value there. Now on the other one, I will start moving it, but I'll paste in my value, and I will take out the minus sign so I can get kind of a mirror arrangement here. So I can take these two videos and line them up. But the exciting thing I can do now is I can actually just use standard masking to mask these videos. So I can take selection tool, set to normal ratio, and just grab halfway through the image. I'll mask it right there. And now I just hit this little button at the bottom of the Layers tab. The timeline's still here, by the way. I just dragged it out of the screen. This one that looks like the Japanese flag, and that video is masked. I can then press the Command key and select my other video, and by pressing Command and clicking that mask, I see that mask again. And now I can press Option or Alt and click Mask and get the opposite mask above. So we have our two videos like this. Maybe we could do better with the shape, but we can play that for a moment so you can see we have something kind of more unconventional going on. What might have worked better for these is we could also just create an entirely new shape. So we could use the polygon select tool, for instance, and I can make this sort of like boomerang shaped thing here. And I could mask both videos within that shape. So I could mask one, click on the mask with Command to turn it back into a selection, mask the other, and now we've got this sort of craziness. And you can also use brush tools in masks the same way you can with normal photos in Photoshop to really, even a feathered mask, to really kind of blend the two together. So now we have this madness going on here. Is this a good thing that I've created? I don't know, but it's just to show you that you can do some really unusual masking in Photoshop if you like.